Story 1, I'm Julian, and my journey as a small business owner in California is filled with twists and turns. This story is about the time when I started my business, when my two friends and I embarked on a hunt to find the perfect place to set up our office. Being new company owners, we were eager to find an affordable office space. We scoured the city for the ideal location, a place that wouldn't break our budget. Then one day my phone rang as I was sitting in my room. It was my trusty broker. His voice crackled with excitement as he described a house tucked away in a quiet, less traveled corner of California, available for very low rent. It was almost too good to be true. The broker also confessed that this house had a reputation. It was a place where people were reluctant to live for some inexplicable reasons. I convened a meeting with my partners, Emily and Noah. We unanimously decided to pay a visit to this location. Everything about that place seemed perfect. The affordability of the house was so appealing, so we set aside the ominous warnings by the broker. Still in the back of my mind, the broker's enigmatic words persisted like an unsettling tune. I tried to suppress my unease, but nothing helped. That night, my mind raced with the possible reasons no one prefers living there. I jerked off those unsettling thoughts, determined to focus on our mission. I reassured myself that it would be a brief visit and nothing more. If we find anything suspicious, we will simply deny the offer and find another place for our office. Little did I know that this mere visit to that place would leave us with unforgettable, everlasting consequences. It was the day of our visit to the house. The day was bathed in the soft golden hues of a crisp autumn evening. My friends and I had chosen this particular time to explore the house. The sun descended on the horizon when we arrived at our destination. The house was located in a quiet, less populated area of California. The house was surrounded by a quaint garden that seemed fully untouched by time. We parked our car in the garage and stepped out. It was a moment of both excitement and trepidation. Staring at the old house before us, I felt a rush of anticipation. "It doesn't look that bad," Noah said, casting an encouraging glance at the house. I nodded in agreement. The house appeared surprisingly well preserved, at least from the outside, which boosted my confidence to explore further. "Guys, we need to stick together. Promise me you won't leave me alone, okay?" Emily spoke up, fear deflecting in her tone. Her hand gripped mine tightly, and I reassured her with a gentle squeeze. I assured her that we would remain together at the time. As we approached the house, my heart fastened its pace. The heart pounding in my chest served as a constant reminder of Borker's words. Yet, with Emily's hand in mine and Noah by our side, I mustered the resolve to confront whatever secrets lay hidden within the confines of the house. We entered the house expecting eerie creaks and ghostly moans, but to our surprise, everything was quite normal. The house's interior appeared ordinary. The peeling wallpaper, dusty furniture, and musty odor in the surroundings were evident that the house had been closed for a decade. We explored the rooms methodically. The small house seemed perfect for our office needs, and the cozy, normal environment within its walls put us at ease. The initial fear melted away as we moved through the rooms, feeling strangely relaxed. I guess all those stories were nothing more than tall tales, Noah joked as we entered the last room in the corridor. His laughter echoed through the space, and I also joined him with a chuckle. Emily just nervously smiles at the newfound sense of relief. We moved out of the last room, talking about how we would convert the house into our ideal workplace. Noah and Emily argued over which room had the perfect view. Suddenly, strange laughter pierced through the house, and I looked at my partner to confirm that they also heard the same unsettling voice. Eventually, the laughter turned into a painful cry, and due to curiosity, we moved toward the source of the voice. The voice grew bolder with every step towards the basement door, and became so clear as we stopped in front of the door. We stood in front of the basement door, debating what to do next. After a few seconds, the crying ceased, and an eerie silence settled all over the place. Only a mere sound of someone weeping from the basement below. "We should check down. It seems like someone needs our help," Noah said, and I nodded in agreement. We thought someone in the basement needed help, and we could not ignore their distress. However, Emily tried to stop us, but we assured her everyone would be fine. We decided to step into the unknown depths of the basement, my heart pounding in anticipation. The basement stairs were really suffocating, dimly lit by a single feeble light clinging to the wall. Ignoring my unease, I kept moving, the narrow stairs that led us to the murky basement. The basement was dusty, filled with some old books, stationery items, broken furniture, and some construction equipment. Just like a typical basement, nothing new. We reached the far corner, near a door from where the voice was still coming. Noah pushed the door open, revealing an entirely different room. This room was decorated with flickering candles that cast shadows on the stone walls, and it looked pretty clean compared to the whole house. The environment inside the room was chillingly cold. As we stepped inside, a shiver coursed down my spine, and my breath hung in the air. It was an environment that seemed to defy the laws of nature, leaving us with a profound sense of unease as we stood on the threshold of this mysterious space. A strange and haunting whisper filled our ears, and a translucent figure came into sight. It was a young girl dressed in a flowing white gown, her face filled with tears and her expression mournful. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. The little girl just looked at us and remained silent, her body trembling, unable to speak, and her eyes filled with unspoken sorrow. Despite her fear, Emily, the only girl in the group, approached the girl and gently touched her arm. However, the moment Emily's hand made contact with her arm, her expression changed. Her eyes turned a fiery red, and the tears on her face changed into streams of crimson blood. It was clear that she did not appreciate Emily's gesture, and we were really getting into serious trouble. In the shocking turn of events, the little girl reacted swiftly. She pushed Emily forcefully, causing Emily's head to hit the stone wall, and she groaned in pain. I rushed towards her, fear gripping my heart as I realized we might be trading on dangerous ground. But as I just made contact with Emily, all the lights in the room abruptly extinguished, leaving us in darkness. "Noah, Emily," I called out to my friends, unable to understand what just happened. In the suffocating darkness, a faint candle suddenly lit the room. As the light spread, I caught sight of the girl once more. She was disappearing into the shadows. Streaks of blood now marred her white dress, half of it soaked in the crimson stains. She disappeared in shadow completely, leaving the room empty within a second, and the air heavy with nothing but silence. "Julian, Emily is not here." Noah's voice shattered the silence in looking, and I swiftly scanned the room. Panic hit me as I realized Emily was missing. After checking the whole place, we emerged from the basement. Our nerves were shaken and bodies exhausted. We examined the house completely and searched for Emily in every room, but we could not find her. She had seemingly disappeared without a trace. Suddenly, Emily's voice echoed from the outside of the house. We rushed toward the garage and found Emily sitting by the car, her body trembling and hands wrapped around her body. We settled in the car and left the house behind without wasting any other moment. Driving away from the house, I glanced at Emily, who was sleeping in the back seat, her tensed body now softened. "Is she okay?" Noah asked with concern in his voice. "Yeah, she is fine. Must be a little tired," I reassured him. I dropped both of them, and after a long journey, I finally arrived at my home. Exhausted and emotionally drained, I collapsed onto my bed. As I lay there, my mind raced with thoughts of everything that had transpired throughout the day. I remained in bed, lost in contemplation, when the sudden buzz of my phone echoed. The message notification on my screen pulled my attention away from my thoughts. I picked up my phone, and as I read the text, a sudden chill swept through the room. Time seemed to stand still for a fleeting moment, and the air around me grew unnaturally cold. The text said, "Emily is dead." Story 2. My name is Kiwi, and this is our story. I was just 21 years old when Nick and I decided to move into his parents' house, a decision that would forever change our lives. It all began when Nick's parents suddenly disappeared. One day, without warning or explanation, they disappeared from their own home, leaving behind unanswered questions. 3 long years had passed since that fateful day, and we still had no idea where they were. After 2 years of waiting for Nick's parents, we made the decision to move into their house. The place had been locked up. It was a big step, but we felt it was the only way to stay emotionally connected with his parents through their memories in the house. We carried our hopes and fears across the threshold, determined to bring life back to the house. We were excited to start a new chapter in our lives, but strange things began to happen on our very first night in the house. It was a night that I would never forget. I was home alone at that time. The silence of the house was calming. I was in the living room when some soft and mournful melody echoed. That strange voice and melody sent shivers down my spine and shocked me. I stood frozen, my heart pounding with fear. When Nick returned, I hurriedly explained everything to him. But he reassured me that it was just my imagination. But I could not ignore the unsettling feeling. Deep down, I knew that it was more than just my imagination. The days turned into weeks, and the eerie occurrences in the house escalated. Strange voices, whispers, and mournful melodies became more frequent. The most unsettling part was that these things happened when I was alone or in the middle of the night when Nick was deep in sleep. My frustration and confusion grew with each passing day. I desperately wanted to tell Nick about all this, but was helpless. How could I explain the unexplainable? After an entire month of facing the bizarre occurrences in our home, I finally managed to convince Nick that something strange was happening. He took my concerns seriously due to my constant anxiety and deteriorating health, but he was still not fully convinced. Because of my constant sense of unease, we made the decision to seek help. We contacted a local paranormal investigator, Dr. Philip James. Dr. James arrived with a suitcase filled with an array of scientific instruments, the tools of his trade. His presence exuded an air of confidence as he confirmed what I had suspected wasn't just my imagination. There was indeed something strange in our house. He assured us that he would uncover the truth and help us. I still remember the day when Dr. James started his investigation. He instructed us to enter the living room only if he called for us. He spent 12 hours in that room with the door firmly closed. It was a stormy night, me and Nick sitting in our room, our curiosity mingled with the sense of fear. However, Nick tried to act calm, but I could see the fear in his eyes. Time passed slowly, the silence thickening in the air until a loud crash echoed from the living room. A powerful surge of scary energy filled the air, making it impossible for us to leave our room. My heart was racing and breathing shallowly. All of a sudden, the lights started flickering as we heard Dr. James call us from the living room. As we entered the room, Dr. James's sad face caught our attention, his eyes filled with sadness and regret. Due to curiosity, Nick asked him about the unfolding events, and he revealed all the secrets about this phantasm house. Jacob, Nick's father, used to love his twin sister deeply. After the death of his sister, he tried to unite with her. He embarked on a journey that led him to perform experiments aimed at bridging the chasm between the living and the dead. It was his desperate hope to reunite with his beloved sister, but his hopes shattered when his experiment went wrong. His experiment went horribly wrong, which trapped him and his wife's soul within the house. Dr. James unfolded the secret behind the sudden appearance of Nick's parents and all of these strange occurrences in the house. He offered a solution, a way to unshackle the trapped spirits of Nick's parents and give them the peace they so desperately needed. With the guidance of Dr. James, we embarked on a journey to help Nick's parents. We conducted a solemn ritual to release the souls from this house. After a 3-hour-long ritual, Dr. James spoke of the final incantation, and the very fabric of the house seemed to tremble as the house was filled with blinding light. The calmness, warmth, and relief in our surroundings were the testament that spirits had faded away, leaving behind nothing but a sense of calm and comfortable silence. Nick's parents were no longer trapped within the confines of our earthly realm. They could finally live peacefully in heaven. Although we have lost them that day, We also discovered the power of love and compassion. The phantasm house transformed from one of fear to one of hope and love. It served as a reminder that our house is not a haunted place. It is a place filled with the warmth of love and hope. With that newfound love and hope, Nick and I chose to spend the rest of our lives in this house, honoring the memory of his parents and cherishing the miraculous transformation that had unfolded within its walls. Story 3. Back in 2016, after finishing college, I joined an institute for a short course. It has been my dream since childhood. I really loved drawing, and I wanted to learn how to do it professionally. I worked hard to get into a top art school called the National College of Art. It was known for being really good, and many talented students worked hard to get into that school. So I worked really hard to earn a scholarship to take a short drawing course there. It was a big deal for me because it meant a lot. The artist inside was passionate about drawing and wanted to make it a part of my future. But things don't always go exactly as planned. What came next in my journey was full of surprises and challenges. I was not ready for it at all. The college was located in a quaint little village surrounded by dense woods. The hostel where I was staying was so ancient. The campus seemed like a paradise, surrounded by mountains and lush trees, far away from the chaos of the city. On my first day, I met a boy named Jimin, who turned out to be my roommate. After spending some time in our room, Jimin suggested, "The hostel is very beautiful. Let's go explore the place." I got really excited and agreed. We explored the whole remarkable hostel and discovered its charm and beauty. Indeed, the hostel was so pretty. "Hey dude, check out the building." We were exploring when Jimin said excitedly, pointing towards a building we had not yet explored, "Let's go." We rushed towards the building, excited to explore a new area of this breathtaking hostel. For some reason, the building was shrouded in darkness, but our youthful enthusiasm decided to ignore the minor inconvenience, and we quickly fetched flashlights. With a small, light hand, we approached the building. As we entered the building, the sight in front of us slightly shocked me. The condition of the building was very ugly, so unwelcoming. The shattered windows, broken door frames, and shards of broken glass on the floor were a testament that this building was old and long abandoned. The environment inside the building was nasty. It seemed like the air was filled with dust. As I breathed in, I could smell the aroma of alcohol and the scent of blood in the air. My heart missed a beat as I looked into the deep darkness. As I stepped inside the corridor, the temperature dropped suddenly. It seemed like an icy chill air lashed against my face, sending shivers down my spine. Ignoring my unease and strange feeling, I stepped into the first room, and our dim lights lit the room. The faded wallpaper on the walls, dusty desks, and dim light made it very scary. The room's atmosphere was so unsettling, so we decided to leave. As we were preparing to leave the room, a soft whisper echoed in the air. It was a mere murmur, but it held a mysterious allure. Suddenly, that single whisper multiplied, like a ripple in a tranquil pond, into a chorus of hushed voices. 2 whispers became 3, 3 turned into thousands, and the room was filled with thousands of faint voices within a second. The voice seemed to have originated from the walls themselves. Controlling my nerves, I tried to focus on the voices, but the whispers were barely hearable, like a puzzle waiting to be solved. A sense of unease and frustration crept over me because I could not understand the situation. I turned around to get a proper view of the room. My flashlight cast an eerie shadow on the wall, and my eyes caught an otherworldly sight. I saw a man in a white tailored suit, his hair cascading over his face, hiding half of it, his eyes all white like pale moons, and he was hanged in the air without my support. My eyes were not ready to believe the sight in front of me, but I could feel his presence. Panic gripped me, and I rushed toward the door and left the room swiftly. My body was trembling so badly, and I could feel drops of sweat on my forehead. As I fled the room, desperate to escape, Jimin's painful scream pierced the air. I marched toward the room where I heard him screaming, but as I entered the room, I encountered a spectral child playing with some strange toys. He was dressed in the same tailored white suit. His eyes mirrored the man I had encountered in the previous room. I swiftly ran and left the room again, desperately trying to get out of that building. Just as the door loomed ahead, my path was obstructed once more. I saw an older man rocking in a chair right in front of the exit room. The dim light and the moonlight coming from the cracks of the window made his face visible. He also wore the same haunting white suit, and his eyes mirrored the others. The same whispers echoed in the air and eventually grew louder and turned into painful screams and moans. At that moment, I felt as if the very fabric of my existence was unraveling. What had begun as a mere adventure of exploration had turned into a nightmarish descent. I couldn't shake overwhelming thoughts that this might be the last day of my life. As I was about to give up on my life, I spotted a door at the far end of the corridor. It looked different. The condition of the door was slightly better, and some light was coming from the gaps between the doors. I considered it my last chance to survive and ran toward that door with all my power. All the voices fell silent as I pushed the door open and entered the room. The temperature inside the room was also normal. I looked around and realized this room was a library. Thousands of books filled the huge cupboards, and many lights brightened the room. In the center of the room, there was a dusty old dairy. Without thinking about anything else, I started reading that book. Its pages were filled with the talkies of suffering souls in this building, written by the former of the school. And at the end of the page, there was a hidden path of getting out of this building. I placed the diary back on the table and rushed toward the secret exit from the room, determined to find my way to safety. As I stepped back into the moonlight, I could not help but feel bad for the poor souls trapped in the building. After the incident, I came back home, leaving my dream course. However, I could not escape the feeling of unease from my heart for a long time. We didn't know we would encounter a situation like this when we decided to explore the hostel. Everything that happened that day was unreal, yet realistic, a nightmarish reality. After that, I never dared to set foot in that village again. The dream school led me into a situation that would linger with me for the rest of my life. Story 4, I'm a Kensha, and today I'm going to share something very important about my life. The story is about a remarkable trip. All of this started when I went to India to meet my maternal grandparents. Although before getting married to my father, my mother used to live in India, this was my first time visiting India. I was excited to visit the new country and explore new cultures and traditions. Our trip to India was going smoothly until that day. It was a regular day. After exploring the city late at night, we returned home and were ready to call it a night. Suddenly, someone knocked on the door. It was an odd hour for a visitor, so my grandfather went to open the door and after some time came back with a baby in his arms. It was a newborn baby, a tiny soul. Everyone was really shocked to see a baby in his arms. The baby was barely a month old, and her cries echoed through the night. My mother reacted first. Stepping forward, she offered her nourishment to the baby, and she eventually fell asleep. After a lot of discussion and debating, my grandparents decided to keep the child. They chose to embrace the responsibility of the poor soul, as they were also alone after my mother's marriage. The baby was barely 1 month old, and her beauty was breathtaking. The baby's vision of beauty with her azure eyes, plump lips, and long lashes brushing against rosy cheeks left us all in awe. My mother named her Sundari, a name that means beauty. In very little time, Sundari became an important part of our lives. I shared a very lovable bond with her. She was so lovable. As the time to return to the United States drew near, sadness settled over me. I was not ready to leave my grandparents, and most of all, in the stillness of one night while everyone else was sleeping peacefully, I could not sleep. A feeling of sadness in the pit of my stomach made me leave my room to get a bottle of water. However, as I stood at the door of the kitchen, what I saw was nothing but miraculous. There, in front of the refrigerator, stood a child eating an apple, her back turned. It took a moment to recognize the child's identity, Sundari. Our Sundari, who was just 2 months old, was standing on her own 2 feet, eating something without any help. The unrealistic sight in front of me sent shivers racing down my spine. An unknown fear and sense of unease gripped my heart. Suddenly, Sundri turned around. Her small body took a swift turn and she glazed right in my direction. But luckily, I was fast enough to hide behind the wall, hiding from her searching eyes. My heart pounded in my chest, and adrenaline surged through my veins. Without wasting any moment, I ran toward my room and locked it, feeling safe in the warmth of my room. What I witnessed was unexplainable. The next day, I dragged myself out of the room, though my heart was gripped with fear. I was so scared to get out of the room and face Sundari again, but I had to tell everything to my parents. That was the first day I ignored Sundri. She was just lying in her baby cot like a normal baby. I straight up went to my grandparents and explained everything I encountered last night. Without wasting any time, they called the religious scholar and informed him about the current situation. Seeking his guidance and insight, after doing a deep calculation, he delivered a startling revelation. He revealed that Sundri was not an ordinary baby. She was the offspring of a ghost. Her mother dropped her in front of our house in order to protect her from some devil. The revelation sent shivers down our spines, unveiling a dark and otherworldly aspect of the enigmatic child who had become an unexpected part of our lives. The man also proclaimed that keeping Sundri at our house was unsafe, but my grandmother and mother didn't listen to him and kept her anyway. The deep affection we had enveloped with Sundri made it hard for us to let her go, so we all agreed. Her presence had woven itself into the fabric of our lives, and we couldn't bear to sever the bond we had forged with her. After some time, I returned to the States, but our connection remained strong through phone calls. She lived with my grandparents in India and grew into a pretty girl. Despite the distance between us, our bond was so unbreakable. After 5 years, I again visited India, and during this trip, me and Sundri became best friends. After that, I started visiting India more frequently just to spend time with her and nurture the extraordinary friendship that had grown between us. On my 18th birthday, I flew to India to celebrate my birthday with Sundri. She was also turning 16, so I decided to surprise her and celebrate our birthday together. When I arrived in India, we reunited and spent time together, visited amazing places, and enjoyed ourselves a lot. Our time was just filled with joy and adventure. Sundari had grown even closer to my grandparents over the years, and their bond had transformed into something truly heartwarming. They lived together as a family, sharing laughter, quality time, games, and endless fun. Sundari had become a priceless gift to the elderly couple, a source of happiness in their world. And between all this love and joy, we somehow forgot the fact that Sundri is not a human. One day, as we were planning my birthday party, the same religious scholar who informed us about Sundri reality came to meet my grandparents. When he entered the room, Sundri's expression suddenly changed. Her ever-smiling face now looked different. Ignoring us, he talked to my grandparents and said he wanted to talk about something important. All the elders went to a separate room and returned after some time. This whole time, Sundri's behavior grew weirdly strange, but I didn't notice her. And when my grandparents came out of the room, both of them looked terrified but tried hard to hide their expressions. It was a disconcerting sight. Suddenly, my grandparents made the unexpected decision to cancel all celebrations, insisting that we celebrate quietly at home. I protested, but my grandmother said they were canceling due to her health problem, but I knew it was something else. The following day, my grandmother took an even more puzzling step by locking Sundari in her room, her cries and protests echoing throughout the house. My heart ached listening to my dearest friend's protests. I tried to ask my grandparents the reason behind their strange behavior, but no one gave me any reason. The day of my birthday arrived. Sundri was still locked in her room, and my grandparents were still stressing over something I don't know. There was nothing but silence all over the house. Frustration and anger welled up within me, and I couldn't bear the mystery any longer. With trembling hands, I dialed the number of the religious scholar who had visited us earlier, demanding an answer, and what he revealed shattered me. He disclosed that upon reaching the age of 16, Sundari would develop a craving for human blood. This was a common trait in ghosts. To protect the lives of others, my grandparents locked her away from everyone. The revelation left me in a state of shock. I could not stop the tears streaming out my eyes. Listening to his words, a feeling of fear gripped my heart. Fearful about my grandparents, I rushed toward their room only to be met with a terrible sight. My grandparents were lying in bed, blood dripping out of their neck and their body lifeless. I rushed toward Sundri's room and she was nowhere to be found. That day, I realized that ghosts and humans can never be friends. Ghosts were not our friends. The end. Thanks for watching. Don't leave before leaving a like to this video. Also, hit the subscribe button to support my work. And as always, have a horrific nightmare, my dear.